How do you measure brand authority? And why is digital PR probably the key to establishing brand authority? These are the questions I'm asking on this week's episode of Search with Candour, and I'm joined by Matt Cayless from Bubblegum Search.
Brand authority is that ability to occupy that space, but not just be visible, but actually be credible within that space as well and trusted. It's all about that quality and those quality signals that come through to Google that they're monitoring. That's where it has that positive knock-on effect to the SEO side. If it's quality, it resonates and you get rewarded for that. There's so many niche events out there, so it could be something that's offline as well, but just pick one, start collaborating, start showing up, and then become an authority in that one space. That, for me, is like one of the key parts to it as well. It's know where the audience hangs out and turn up repeatedly. So you've got to ask yourself, where do you want to put your time, energy into something? Do you want to get ahead of the game and build authority, which is lasting, or do you want to try and cheat the game, so to speak, in these early stages?
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search with Candour, the podcast where I interview the best and brightest minds across SEO and digital marketing. I am your host, Jack Chambers Ward, and this week I am joined by the founder and director of Bubblegum Search, Mr. Matt Cayless. Matt and I actually met at Brighton, where I saw him talk about this very topic, and this feels like a nice expansion to basically Matt's talk from earlier on in April 2025. We're going to be talking about brand authority, how to build it, how to measure it, why it's important, and why you should care about it for your SEO in 2025 and beyond. I know brand has been kind of the buzzword and the keyword for a lot of SEO this year, and I've got a couple more episodes talking about it coming up very soon as well. So yeah, it feels very relevant, feels important, and brand authority specifically really kind of stuck out to me when I saw Matt's talk at Brighton, and it's a great conversation. I think you're really enjoying it. Before we get to that though, of course, please do give us a like down below, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. You can follow on Spotify and give us 5 stars, or review and follow on Apple Podcasts as well. Basically, drop a comment down below and I would appreciate it. I appreciate any comments, any reviews, any updates, any requests, anything like that. I would hugely appreciate you guys getting involved and basically being a part of the conversation. I feel like we're an industry that is missing a lot of conversations that are happening, and hopefully this is kind of the mission of this podcast, is to get your brain thinking and hopefully get you thinking new ideas and new things you can try, and strategies and things like that you can try on your sites and your clients, and maybe reframe some things you've been thinking about for a little while. Anyway, without any further ado, here is my conversation with Matt Cayless all about brand authority. My guest this week has worked in SEO and digital marketing for over a decade. He has been featured in various publications of leading industry quality, including Social Media Today, Marketing Donor, Databox, and Ahrefs, as well as speaking at Brighton SEO, where I saw him speak in person, no less. He is the founder and director of Bubblegum Search. Welcome to Search with Candour, Matt Cayless.
Hello. Hey, Jack. How's it going?
Hello, sir. I'm good, thank you, man. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I know you guys reached out, and I think I literally waved and shook your hand at Brighton, and then dashed off and was doing many other things. So
yeah, no, it's busy times, wasn't it? But yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic to discuss, and I feel like I say this a lot when I see people speak at conferences, or I, have a kind of conversation of like, oh, this is kind of a topic you've talked about before. Those conference talks are so tight with their timings. This is an opportunity for us to kind of expand and just have a big, broad conversation. You can cover all the things you didn't get a chance to cover in your talk, right? So almost feels like a sequel to the talk in many ways. I know you guys at Bubblegum talk a lot about brand authority and digital PR, and that's basically going to be the topic for this week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a topic that's, we're passionate about at Bubblegum. And as you say, there's like so many ins and outs to it that even at a talk you don't quite get the full message across anyway. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we'll get stuck straight in. People have probably maybe heard the phrase brand authority before, but for you, and like I said, this is a key part of your talk and what you guys talk about at Bubblegum, what is brand authority as you define it?
Yeah, so brand authority for us really is kind of the know, like, and trust factor that a brand might have, or the kind of easier way to think of it is the brand that occupies top of mind. Um, so it could be, you know, anything. For example, like if I said pets, pets at home might be the brand that comes to the top of mind. So there's plenty of examples like that, but really brand authority is that ability to occupy that space, but not just be visible, but actually be like credible within that space as well, and trusted. So yeah, it's a brand does that over time through many means, but that's really how we envision brand authority as well. Is like how within your niche or within your industry are you that brand that comes to mind first.
Yeah, I think you put it really well there when you combine not just the visibility side of things, but I think is what a lot of us are talking about at the moment, and we'll get on to the evolution and recent changes of the SERPs in a moment. But even that credibility side of things, and again, I think this has been a big topic with people talking about what is being linked to on the SERPs, what is being referenced, what is being covered by LLMs and AI mode and all this kind of stuff. We're seeing some real dodgy sources of
Yeah,
information, some straight up incorrect stuff, some badly cited things. I think combining the two of them, you've got it spot on where that's where you can really kind of prove yourself long term rather than kind of just targeting that short term visibility. Comes back around to a lot of the EAT stuff that Google talks about so
yeah,
often, right? When you're proving yourself as a trustworthy source to your audience, and then you can then rely on them to recommend you to other people
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
right? It's that almost that off-page SEO, word of mouthy kind of stuff as well.
Exactly. And I think we're going through that kind of, I guess, that Wild West period, like with LLMs, that Google had to go through, and no doubt, like they're scrambling behind the scenes to, to build up those other quality signals that that they're going to have to that they're going to have to be trained on. So it's not just, it could be like in my instance, it could be best SEO consultant, and then you type that in, and then you know at the moment, for example, ChatGPT will just go, where are the documents that reference best SEO consultant, and just simply pull it in. So, that's it's a working process at the moment, but for those, that's a good example where that visibility doesn't necessarily mean authority, and it doesn't necessarily mean credibility. But I think, no doubt, it could be a year or it could be 2 years away. That will all get kind of fixed, and those kind of methods, and I think at the moment it's open, unfortunately, to be spammed in that respect. But it'll get ironed out eventually, and I know some people will play that game where they might set up sites, for example, and manipulate those kind of citations and those searches, and that's fine. And it was like anything, it might work for 6 months, it might work for a year, but it won't work eventually. So you've got to ask yourself, where do you want to put your time, energy into something? Do you want to get ahead of the game and build authority, which is lasting, or do you want to try and cheat the game, so to speak, in these early stages?
Yeah, it feels like we're seeing a lot of kind of like a second wave or a resurgence. A lot of the earlier SEO spammy tactics, right? When
Yeah.
it seems like AI views are very easy to manipulate. I know Mark Williams Cook has been able to. A previous site of ours that was a Dungeons and Dragons content focused site, because we're nerds here at Candour, we got absolutely smashed by the September 2023 helpful content update, like so many other content sites did. And we were like, it is legit people with experience. Both Mark and I have been playing for years. I have run games for nearly 20 years at this point. We had other friends and writers who we know, we have played with, we know have firsthand experience. It is legit, helpful information written by experts, etc., ticking all the boxes, doing all the right stuff, right? And we got absolutely like 99% maybe traffic absolutely smashed. Went from tens of thousands of clicks a month to like a couple, like double digits, basically. It was absolutely mad.
Nasty, yeah.
And then Mark copied one of our articles over to LinkedIn Pulse. And lo and behold, it's ranking. It's showing up on AI overviews. And it's like, did we not have a big conversation about site reputation abuse and how Google was filtering all of this spam stuff, and we're catching more spammers than ever and stuff, right? And I think you're spot on. These tactics will work. Like, that's Mark just proving a point clear. I'm not saying this was Mark building a new content strategy. Like, this was us essentially taking the piss and being like, well, like, you can just rank on LinkedIn Pulse. That's the answer apparently to ranking AI overviews.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be the conversations, you guys at Bubblegum or us here at Candour or the listeners and viewers, whether they're in-house or agency. That's not the conversation you're having with your clients or with your colleagues, right? When it comes to that long-term side of things, we've been saying this for decades before both you and I were even working in SEO. Like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's always the long-term goals. You've got to aim for long-term stuff and not just do that, like you said, the little short-term play in the game, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes back to even like, Google of 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's kind of like everyone knows how easy it was to spam. You just put a few keywords on the page, send a bunch of crappy links to the page, and hey, we're kind of ranking the next day. We all knew in the industry that there was a timer on that before it would all come crashing down. So it's just it's a bit of history repeating in that respect. But the message that we had back then, which is still true of today, is are you looking to build a brand for the long term, or are you just looking to make a quick buck, so to speak? And so fine, no judgment. If that's you want to make a quick buck, go for it. But if you're looking to build a proper brand for the long term, then doing it the proper way and through authority building is really the only way, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think we had that kind of golden age of niche sites and people doing all that kind of stuff, right? And just living off ad revenue and selling domains and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
like we kind of got past that. We're now, like you said, back around to a bit more of a white hat focused kind of industry. And it feels like digital PR has become a big talking point, and link building as a whole, but I think specifically digital PR has become a big talking point and a big focus for kind of that more trustworthy, more, again, kind of old school mentality, but still working in a digital space. And for us, obviously, at Candour, I know many people probably already know this, but we fairly recently expanded our digital PR team. Like, in the last couple of years, we've gone from one digital PR person to a handful in a team, and they're all got their own clients and working on different stuff. And some of our digital PR clients aren't even our SEO clients necessarily, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely a conscious decision from Tabby, our head of search, Mark, our SEO director, like thinking about what's the future going to look like. And I know a lot of people are saying, like, I think digital PR is kind of here to stay, folks. This is going to be a big key part of how you're going to go through this process and build that authority long term. So I guess my question to you then, Matt, is like, how are you approaching that, tying that digital PR and having those conversations with those clients? How does that tie into that building your brand and growing the brand for your clients?
Yeah, so with us, I mean, the digital PR aspect of it is more so these days about the actual, not so much the links. So obviously traditionally, I say traditionally, but even, a few years back, it was very much all about the links. And don't get me wrong, it is that is still important, but especially with, LLMs today, the brand mentions part of it, and the kind of authoritativeness you get from that, and especially when it's in trusted media publications, is it's quickly becoming just as important, and I think it will surpass the importance of links, in the coming years. So that's what we love about it. It's that kind of the power that you get from digital PR, which you wouldn't get from kind of classic link building, whether that's like guest posts or whatever it might have been. But like in terms of like how we actually like measure it, there's kind of various ways in which we look at it. So you've got like branded search volume. So we'll see, obviously you want to see that increase. Usually what we find is, especially once you get high quality trusted branded mentions on relevant publications, and the keyword there is relevant, because again, it's like anything with digital PR, you can try and get publicized anywhere for the sake of it, or a link for the sake of it. But we're finding that really doesn't move the needle anymore. So, it has to be super relevant wherever you pitch your story. But done well, and obviously to a site that is relevant, and a story that resonates, whether it's brand mentions or links. Often you'll find a spike in branded search as well during that day and the following days that come after it as well. And just the quality of the search and the traffic that you usually get off that is of a higher quality as well. And so this is how it generally all ties up. So again, like, you can, just because you get traffic to a website, doesn't mean it's going to help the SEO part of it, so to speak. It's all about the quality of that traffic that sends through, because it's obvious when you think about it. If someone finds you through a reputable publication, and they're generally interested and they're generally the right fit audience for it, then they go and perform a branded search, they find your website, they are now interested, they are going to spend longer on the site, they're going to click through to more pages, and then hopefully actually become a lead as well. We've done quite multiple campaigns where it's not just the mentions and the links and the SEO part of it, but actually when it's done well, it's like a lead gen or a sales generation channel within itself. Now, I'm not saying that always happens, because you've got to tick all the boxes, and each campaign doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get all of those in alignment. But that's another thing that people forget about as well, when the referral traffic that comes from the link as well. But I guess going back to what I was saying about tying it up, it's all about that quality, and those quality signals that come through to Google, that they're monitoring. That's where it has that positive knock-on effect to the SEO side. So when I always say, like, oh, you've got to increase branded search volume, yes, that's important, but I'm of the opinion that more so it's actually of the quality of the search that branded search actually brings that has the bigger impact, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, and then, like, there's other variables that we look at, like actual keyword branded variations. So you could be your brand name, it could be your brand name plus whatever the product or service is, it could be your brand name plus review. There's various combinations, but again, that's all the good stuff that Google wants to see and monitor, and ultimately you can track all of those branded searches as well, and that's something we do as an agency. The branded mentions that I've said already, where do you feature? We're talking about articles as well, but like, it could be like, you're mentioned or referenced in a newsletter or a podcast or something like that. So especially with, like, AI searches now, where they're casting a wider net, not just beyond, what's indexed in Google as well. And then branded anchor text as well. Did you see, Jack, recently the study that Hrefs put together? And it was about AI overviews and the correlation. I know, again, correlation doesn't mean causation, but like, it was essentially the top 3 ranking factors anyway. So the top 3 were all brand, and they kind of cover the points that I'm kind of mentioning here. I think, if I'm correct, it was branded search, I think it was branded mentions, and I think it was branded anchor text. But yeah, so the correlation is super high with these factors, not only impacting Google, but also, kind of AI search, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, like you said, conversations people were having a long time ago about unlinked mentions and all that kind of stuff, right? And I know our head of search, I mentioned earlier, Tabby, is a big proponent of that and has been for years.
Yeah.
And it comes back around to people seeing your brand name, seeing that kind of thing. Like you said, they're literally getting data from folks like Hrefs that can prove that people seeing your brand can actually make a difference. And this is often a conversation we have with clients, where I think it was kind of the theme of the podcast for all of 2024, with like, don't think of SEO as just a silo channel, right? When you mentioned referral traffic, you mentioned like branded traffic as well. They are, you look in your direct traffic channel in GA4, look at your referral traffic in GA4. Don't just filter by organic search and see how you go, because I think it's now become so important to understand how all those different channels relate to each other. And if you are hopefully doing the right thing and working together with the paid team and the content team and the digital PR team and whoever it is, you're working together to achieve the same goal for the client, to meet their KPIs and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm kind of viewing it more of like, an SEO is like an SEO slash like brand strategist in that respect, and it's even the attribution point when you say about Google Analytics. We've internally had similar conversations recently about almost like not shooting ourselves in the foot when it comes to reporting. You've got like organic search, but then like you've got like direct, as you say, and now we've just filtered down, so we're able to actually get LLMs traffic as well, so we can report on Gemini and ChatGPT, etc., through there. And because essentially, like, that is SEO. Like, if you're not reporting on that, then you are just kind of shooting yourself in the foot now. So I would definitely encourage anyone that's not doing that and not kind of filtering down to report on that, whether it's kind of agency side or internally, to do so, because you're right. Like that, it's SEO has become so, omnipresent, across a range of channels now, that you end up shooting yourself in the foot otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give a couple of shout outs to former guests on the show as well. I know Ashley Liddell and what their guys are doing over at Deviation. The search everywhere mentality, I think, is a really nice way of.
Yeah.
I know. Again, I'm aware I'm using Ashley's trademark phrase there. We're friends. I'm sure he'll let me off. But that kind of nicely summarizes a lot of, I think, what we're talking about in the industry when we're not trying to be siloed and we're trying to be better and work together. And like you said, build that bigger picture as SEO as part of the broader marketing perspective of our clients, of our sites, and getting that better collaboration, communication, and overall kind of working together to achieve a greater goal kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of what we're seeing when it comes to fewer and fewer people using Google and using ChatGPT or TikTok or whatever. Like, not even search engines, other platforms. You mentioned YouTube, but of course, being another huge search platform that I bet the vast majority of content strategists are not having conversations with their clients about, even though it's 2025 and YouTube's been around for nearly 20 years. Like, when are we going to catch up, right? And maybe
exactly,
again,
a catch up.
I consume a lot of YouTube content. I make a lot of YouTube content now thanks to the podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of it, but it feels like we're kind of finally starting to have these kind of conversations. Like you said, think about podcasts, think about YouTube, think about so many other platforms outside of just the traditional Google search, and how that can build the visibility and credibility for the brand.
100%. And I think for a lot of brands, you kind of get comfortable with things that worked 10 years ago and certainly 20 years ago. And so, going back to that period of time, like, you could literally have one person being the SEO. They'd put up some content, they'd build some, low quality links, and it worked, and you ranked, and you could essentially just run the business of like one person and one channel. And so now, with that almost being impossible, in the wider context, where you have to go back and say, well, look, we have to build brand, we have to be kind of present in other channels, and that means, not only like more people to the team, because of course not everyone can do all the digital PR, do all the traditional SEO, and do video content marketing, whatever it means now to build a brand and to build brand authority and to essentially compete within a lot of industries. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow, to be like, well, actually, we're going to need more budget and either more people or smarter ways of working to do this. So it's kind of that mental shift, I think, as well. I'm not sure if you've experienced much of that, Jack, your side with clients as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we were saying before we started recording, right? It's that ability to communicate with the clients, try to be as proactive as we can. This is a conversation we're having a lot of Candour at the moment about all the stuff that is shifting in the SERPs. And I know, again, before we started recording, I was saying I had a conversation with my wife the other day that was like, you need to be aware of this, because not only do you live with me and I talk about this for a living, I'm going to end up bringing this up, but also the way you interact with Google, which is still the most prevalent search, whether you like it or not at the moment, for now, it's going to fundamentally change. And I think you brought up a bad example of like us millennials getting kind of comfortable with it, right? I remember getting our first computer and searching on using Google for the first time. Maybe not the exact date, but like roughly, I remember what has changed in the time of me using Google over the last 20 years or so, right? And we've gotten pretty comfortable with how we need to word things, how we need to phrase things. I kind of know what to type into. There are plenty of people, and again, Matt, I'm sure, and the listeners and viewers, you've had this as well. You're the person who can search for things that other people can't find. You'll get your friends and family being like, oh, I can't find this thing. Would you mind having a look for me? I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Here comes the SEO guy who knows what to type into Google to find the thing. And 9 times out of 10, I find the thing in 1 or 2 searches.
Yeah.
But that's going to change. Like the way people fundamentally interact with search has changed and is going to continue to change, whether it's the conversational side of things that we're seeing now with ChatGPT and that kind of thing. But I think there's also the side of it when people are looking for brands as well. The way they're going to be referenced in AI-powered and LLM-powered stuff is also changing. So we need to be aware of how our brands are being represented within that space as well. And that makes such a big difference to, like you said, the good old days of 10 blue links kind of feel behind. They're still there, but they're quite far down the page at this point.
Yeah. And so again, goes back to, I guess, the kind of wider discussion of, how, okay, fine, that's the way things are moving, but how can you combat that in some ways? And, for us, it's definitely about that brand authority, because at the end of the day, like, even with AI mode and that kind of full shift gear, the recommendations, even when it's kind of personalized, they're still pulling in a recommendation at the end of the day. So the question becomes, well, how are you that trusted brand that gets recommended, even with those factors all considered? And so the way in which we're seeing it and pitching it ultimately is to build brand authority. Digital PR is of course one of those ways of doing it. But I mean, there's many ways. I mean, it comes back down really to the good old, paid and owned media. You get all those right. I mean, of course, like the fundamentals of having a good product or service that people actually like, and I mean you can't get past that. I mean, if the product or the service is crap, then you've lost already. But like if you get past that bit, and you've got good product fit, then the rest of it is about cleverly getting influence with the audience in the right places.
Yeah, 100%. And the other former guest I'll shout out who shared the stage with you at Brighton, funnily enough, is Tamara Navitovic from Bassoon.
Yes. Yeah.
And Tamara was on the second episode, I think it was, of this year, of this season. We talked about like, are backlinks still worth it in 2025? And Tamara and I have since gone back and forth many times.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, well here's this and here's that and da, da, da. And I think I really like the way Tamara's like talk framed it, where you're talking about like the value of links, and as we said earlier, the way to measure the value of links and stuff, thinking about direct traffic and branded traffic and all that kind of stuff, not just did my DA or DR go up by 2 points. Like, I know it's called domain authority, but don't literally think of it like domain authority.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, and that was kind of the whole point of Tamara's talk, was we've gotten kind of stuck in these vanity metric kind of things because they're very easy to report to clients. They're very easy just to be like, well, you've gone up 3 points or 10 points or whatever it is. Number go up, report good. me do good work, number go up, right? Whereas actually it's a much broader conversation. It's a much bigger picture that you're trying to paint. And if you take that tiny little slice, sure, you can fudge the numbers and get away with it and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure plenty of people have been doing that for many years. But if you're trying to build a long-term strategy that's going to work through these changes that we're seeing now, I think you've got to focus on exactly what you and Tamara were talking about at Brighton, is that brand authority, is understanding where the value of backlinks is coming from, because that's also changing. Google is always saying, oh, links are not as important as they used to. And like, I think all the studies kind of prove that they're still pretty valuable.
Yeah, 100%. And that's always what I've been careful to kind of say is like, I'm not saying there's no value in links. There's a huge amount of value still in links. Yeah, over the last decade, you could argue that's it's kind of faded for sure, but there's no doubt that it still has a massive impact. I think it's just that shift of, like, going back to what you were just saying about almost, I guess, call it like lazy reporting, and then don't get me wrong, like, we were previously guilty of that, but it is easier to say,
everyone was, we all were.
to report on, you say, oh, DA's gone up or DR's gone up or whatever it might be, but that kind of re-education about, okay, fine, so what does make a quality of link? Is it the relevancy? Is it the fact that actual traffic comes through not only to the domain, but actually the page where the link is on itself? Are people? It goes back to, like, I think it was the surfer model that Google had, the patent from many years ago, where it's the same thing that they've been saying for years. Like, what's the probability that someone actually clicks on that link because they find it valuable? It's very simple in that, when you put it like that. But again, as SEOs for years, we've kind of seen past that because it was easier and quicker to just get the link and just report on like a few metrics. Whereas now it's like, you can't do that anymore. You can't get away with it anymore. So you've got to think beyond that. And so, yeah, and with digital PR, like, the reason I'm more of an advocate for it above all is because it is earned. Like, we pitch to journalists, and if it's no good, it will just flop. If it's kind of okay, it will get some traction. And if it's really good, it will get a ton of traction and lots of coverage. So it's kind of almost where, or like, organic social's gone at the moment with the interest graph. Like, it doesn't matter like how many followers you've got for many platforms, especially something like TikTok. Like, the quality of the post and the quality of the content determines like the reach. And that's what I love about digital PR is the skill factor, essentially, that you've got to put behind that. People can think of it as a simple process of outreaching to journalists. Well, fine, but if you don't know what journalists are looking for, you don't know the kind of stories that resonate with their audience, etc., then you're going to fall flat quite quickly. So it's really, and Google knows all this. I mean, that's why they've even come out in the past and said, like, they are a fan of a lot of things that digital PRs do, because there's no two ways about it. If it's quality, it resonates, and you get rewarded for that.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you said, the paid, owned, earned kind of side of things becomes so important because you got to work for it, right? I know there was a big conversation. I think it was not April's Brighton, but October's Brighton SEO. There was a fairly spicy link building panel where it was like a couple of digital PR people and a couple of just buy my links from my marketplace people.
Okay, yeah.
And it was kind of a bit of a clash of like, well, yeah, you're not paying for links, but you're paying people to build links for you. So how is that different? Kind of thing? And I'm like, yeah, I see it's not literally paying for the link, but I can. Money has been in order for that service. Yeah, but that's how the world works. Like that's if you're boiling things down into that, then that's a bit mad. But I think that for me, when it comes down to the, like you said, mentioned earlier, like guest posts and kind of a lot of the classic kind of link building kind of stuff, where digital PR comes in for me and where it really shines and where I really notice it even before I was properly aware of it, working with teams that are doing it, is when you get that cool, new, interesting, unique stuff. Whether it's like freshness, I know that's a phrase Google uses a lot when it comes to especially topical stuff. And also the talk of like information gain, right? Like how much new stuff, how much are you just regurgitating the stuff that's already there, or are you actually providing value and something new to your users? And exactly as you said, Matt, like who's going to actually click on that thing? Why would I, as a person reading this piece of content or listening to this podcast or whatever it is, Claire, to click a link in the show notes or click the link and thing? How many actual people go on external links and make that customer journey? I would assume it's very, very few, especially now, again, coming into a world of 0 clicks and all that kind of stuff. But even a couple of years ago, I tend to click around and stuff because I got my SEO brain on. But we are a rare breed. We are unusual
to for sure.
Purposefully click around and test stuff. Like I used my mate as an example earlier of like, oh, he's a researcher and an academic, so he clicked all of the links on an AI overview. Nobody's doing that. He is an oddball. Shout out to you, Chris. I know you listen to podcasts. But like we're weirdos, right? We're inside baseball. We're aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
imagine a lot of people do not go, oh, that particular retailer provided data about their whatever, or analyzed some search data to provide a report for this article on the Sun or whatever. Like, I'm going to go and click and buy my stuff from them. It's like, yeah, maybe some people will do,
Yeah.
but you might remember that name. And when you see it again, and then, as you said, Matt, like tying that into an overall strategy of like, and then you see them advertised on Instagram, and then you see an organic social post, and then you see them pop up in another article, and then mentioned on a podcast, and then mentioned in a newsletter. And
Exactly.
suddenly
Yeah.
you're building that picture.
Yeah.
Right? There's the old, and I've misquoted this number many times on the podcast already. How many touch points do you need to have with the customer before they actually buy something from you?
7, I think it is.
Nowhere near 7 anymore, mate. This is
Oh, is it not?
It was 7, then it was 9. Now it's like 40.
Oh, wow.
It is right, exactly right. Yeah, this is the world we live in, with all of this digital stuff all of the time. And I say this
Doesn't
as somebody
surprise
who
me,
is
though.
very much guilty of creating a lot of content, but we are bombarded with stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Whether you're working in this industry or not, you are hearing podcasts, YouTube, emails, social media, bus ads, all this kind of stuff. Like, advertising and content is absolutely inescapable
Yeah.
unless you go and live in a cabin in the woods. I think because of that, it kind of dilutes it, right? And you then really, really, really have to push through. And I think that's why stuff like digital PR is so important. When you're seeing somebody referenced across multiple sources, across relevant sources and high authority, trustworthy sources,
Yeah.
then you build that brand picture over time. It's not they see you once in an article and click through and buy all of your products and look, they're the number one customer. It's slowly building up that and chipping away, for want of a better phrase, in a positive way, chipping away.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing I think is important that a lot of people forget is that you're not trying to, more than 9 times out of 10, you're not trying to be like mass appeal. Yes, of course you can get like, outreach to the tabloids, which are kind of mass, but a lot of the digital PR we do for our clients is very within their space, and so I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like we've got a very niche tech client, and for them, like we built up a relationship with like it's probably a handful, like 15, 20 of like the really go-to publications within their space. Yes, of course, we outreach further and wider to that to get a broader appeal. But a lot of the time, the relationships we built up and we know if we keep hammering that space, and every week and every month, there's a story that mentions that brand. It goes back to exactly what you say, Jack. It's over time, then that trust builds up, and it's familiar. And when they see the clients, ads or their own content marketing or whatever it might be, then suddenly you're already that foot in the door, above the noise that you described as well. It's that is for me is like one of the key parts to it as well. It's kind of know where the audience hangs out, and and turn up repeatedly.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of audience research and stuff like that can be done, but if you're not publishing where people are, then they're not going to see you. There is no point marketing to me on Pinterest. I don't use Pinterest.
Yeah.
I know there was
Yeah.
some crazy stats about Pinterest a couple of weeks ago that I mentioned on LinkedIn, and people got very annoyed about. I was like, who the hell uses Pinterest in 2025? Turns out a lot of people still use
they
Pinterest
do.
in 2025.
Yeah,
And
they
I
do.
was like, I tried it once when I was wedding planning like 6 years ago. I haven't touched it since. And I assumed I was normal. Apparently not. There are millions and millions of people that still use Pinterest.
It's massive. It's really massive. But the other thing that's really interesting is how that interest of these platforms and social channels, how they vary in popularity according to each of the kind of demographics behind the industries as well. So it could be like, I don't know, an interior design brand, like they're going to probably be all over, like that audience is probably going to be all over something like Pinterest. But like, I don't know, tech audience, perhaps not so much, kind of thing. So it really pays to, and this is something we do for the digital PR, is like knowing your audience is the number one step for us, knowing the client's needs, of course, but really then it's that deep dive into the audience. And then we've got various tools that we use to uncover exactly that. What are the media publications that particular audience, that they follow, amongst other things as well. And that's the starting point, which is critical, as you say, because it does vary. There's no point doing Pinterest marketing when it's just tumbleweed there for your particular audience. So it sounds straightforward, but you'll be surprised how many people dive into these things without that initial step of really understanding that audience and where they are.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people maybe underestimate how every single niche has an audience. And for me, who has a wide variety of incredibly niche topics that I'm very interested in. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they're like, so what's your Roman Empire? What's the thing you could talk about for hours? I'm like, how long you've got? I've got 15 of them. I am ADHD all over the place. Like, do you want to talk about this or this? Or do you want to talk about a very specific era of 90s Japanese pro wrestling? Do you want to talk about how to build current, like, Android-based emulation devices? Do you want to talk about heavy metal music from the last 20 years? I've got it all, mate. My brain is full of all of this useless information. But then I'm also like, I'm aware I'm on this platform. I'm aware I'm looking at this thing. I will listen to a podcast and be aware. And again, not to go into the podcasting side of things very briefly, like when advertisers don't align or guests don't align with the audience, and you get that weird bit of friction of like, that felt weird. Like, you're doing I'm vegetarian myself, so take like a vegan health podcast, and then suddenly it's like Omaha Steakhouse, come and buy your steak. You're like, wait, what? Like, did you not approve? Did you not control this? Like, I know that's not always necessarily in the content creator's control, but when it is, you should be thinking about that kind of stuff and how that builds like the perception of you as a brand, as a company, as content creators. This is a part of the talk I pitched to Brighton SEO. Actually, here's a little preview.
Nice.
That future of publishing and that future of publication, because I think when we're moving towards fewer clicks from SERPs and fewer organic search actually converting and stuff, you need to start thinking about spaces outside of Google to target your audience. It's newsletters, podcasts, YouTube channels, other closed off things. Bloody Slack and Discord, like 100%. Closed community stuff can be so important to build reputations in particular communities. If you get recommended in a SEO Slack and you're a SaaS that, building SEO tools, hello, like that's the perfect way. Like you just get an organic mention, or so you and I organically mentioned Ahrefs just now. Ahrefs have never sponsored the podcast. I am in no way affiliated with Ahrefs, but Brian, Patrick, Sai, and the team do great work, and they do good, interesting stuff. Ta-da, they're mentioned on an SEO podcast. Do you know what I mean? Like,
100%. And that's actually like the hidden value is exactly that. Like it's almost like the dark traffic that you get that goes into direct. Like we can measure certain things, and some of those we've spoken about already, whether it be branded mentions or branded search. But that's a really critical point, that there's so much that goes on that we just don't know about, like, whether it's in a WhatsApp chat or a Slack chat or whatever. And there's that hidden value from that, and then someone will go on perhaps to do a search beyond that, or or it can even ripple. It can have a knock-on effect because somebody heard about it or someone was recommended it, and then they go on further as well. But all of that stuff is the juicy stuff that unfortunately you just can't truly attribute to. There's just no way around that. It's just you have to to some degree kind of be okay with that, and be okay with not knowing 100%, but just know that things are working because the signals that you do have are improving. But ultimately, you've got to look at other signals, like and it's a bit broad, but I suppose it's what marketers we used to do many years ago, is like, are you doing that marketing, and in general is the bottom line improving, or is are you having more conversations or quality conversations, or getting more leads and so far, because, and just accept to some degree that those wider conversations, that ripple effect is going to happen as part of that.
Yep. I think that's seems to be where a lot of people are thinking, which is good. Like a lot of like-minded people like us are having these
It's
kind
a
of
tough sell
conversations. Thankfully,
for many, I think. Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
It is tough, especially when you sometimes take that to a client and they're used to Google of analytics, of 10 years ago, and they're like, but hang on, we
yeah,
were able to measure everything so perfectly, and I was like,
yep,
well, attribution's kind of going out the window, really. And I'm sorry
yeah,
to break it to you, but it is. But if we view it from this viewpoint that we're discussing, everyone's in the same boat, and that's those are the moves, that's the controllables that we have.
yeah. I think there's a conversation I know Renee Bigelow's been talking about a lot recently. She uses the term attribution crack, and we've all been hooked on attribution crack for years. And like you
I
said,
like that.
we've gotten lazy, we've gotten comfortable with being able to see everything in universal analytics back in the golden age.
That was lovely. Love that.
Remember those days? Yeah, lovely. All the cherubs and clouds and angels and universal analytics. RIP. But when it comes to things like GA4, obviously they have stripped back. They, being Google, have stripped back a lot of the elements we had gotten comfortable with in universal analytics, and now we end up defaulting to like blended machine learning led attribution models, which, unless you go and look it up and really study it, and you're someone like Lazarina Story who knows what they're talking about, I don't know how machine learning, but I had to kind of vaguely explain it to a client a few months ago when they were like, why is our year-on-year data looking weird? And I'm like, well, attribution fundamentally changed when we swapped to GA4 last year. So
that was fun, wasn't
it? Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think you're right. We're almost heading toward, if we're not there already, we're on the precipice, like you said, in this kind of weird middle ground.
Yeah.
Post attribution digital marketing era.
Yeah, for sure.
There's going to be no click. There's going to be no clicks from AI mode. There's going to be no clicks from AI overviews. No clicks from LLM.
Rankings as well. I'm kind of thinking ranking data when it's all personalized.
Yep.
And the other thing as well behind the scenes is that many of the rank tracking tools, they're struggling. Google is throwing them curveballs all the time, messing around with the search volumes that they're provided and so forth. So yeah, as you say, it's that messy middle for the moment. Kind of where it ends up will probably just be a watered down version, I suppose, of kind of what we're used to. But yeah, all you can do is the controllables, and I think keep on doing the stuff that you just know fundamentally is right. And for me, it's always about brand. What can't you? If you're building a moat, so to speak, for me, brand is it. And it's, again, it all just goes back to the things that Google themselves have been preaching for a long time. I can't remember the exact saying, but essentially they said about what separates the bad from the good is brand, and that's the signals that they look for.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's. I wonder. I was going to try and make a little timeline thing of like, in 6 months we won't be having this conversation because we won't have a choice. But like I said a couple of times on the podcast already, I think by the end of the year here in the UK we will have fully launched AI mode. AI overviews were about 3.5-4 months behind the US last time.
Yeah,
and I think they being Google are keen to push this through and make it a thing. And in a way, like I said, I think even before we started recording, and they kind of launched a bit too quickly with AI overviews and kind of got a bit carried away and probably weren't really ready for it, despite their apparent confidence, because of all the pressure from every other potential AI-powered competitor happening. So when Google do AI mode, they need to kind of get it right. And I've seen Noah from Sterling Sky and the SEO community has been doing some great work, like running demos and stuff and showing how query fan out works and all that kind of stuff and getting into the cool little details of it all. But loads of people are just going to start using it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And when it comes round to stuff like we were talking about earlier, the different sources and stuff, when we're having those conversations with clients, I'm now starting to say, haha, I'm a podcaster, I know, I do YouTube stuff, but like, maybe start your own YouTube channel, folks. Like, hey, client, are you creating potential multimodal, multimedia content that is going to be future-proof? or are you still writing the same blog posts you would be 10 years ago? Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, the other thing as well is, from what I've heard, not 100%, but what I heard is it won't start as the default. Have you heard anything about that, where AI mode isn't going to be the default mode, so you have to click on
Yeah.
it? But I don't know how long that will last for before it transitions to being the standard.
Yeah, I think there was a conversation. Chris Green brought it up on the podcast where I had the panel will talk about AI mode and stuff. Google will serve the all tab, which is the default normal search, for want of a better phrase, which will still include AI overviews by default. And then AI mode is the extra tab just next to it, right? And there are obviously two kind of points to that. Is the psychology of having it right next to it is obviously that's clearly the prioritization. And I think the great point that Chris and I think Jono made as well, like they are investing a lot of money in this, and not to get too capitalist about it all, but like Google are putting a lot of money and time and resources on money that mere mortals like us can only fathom, like indescribable amounts of money and investment into this. So they're gonna make it work whether you like it or not. I think it will for sure be the default. I think it launches. Here's go predictions from Jack Chambers Ward. Here we go. By the end of this year, we have AI mode fully rolled out in the UK. By the end of 2026, it is default Google search.
Yeah,
that is my hot take prediction.
I'll join that prediction. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. We're on the train together.
So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of finding the feet. But I think ultimately, for us as like SEOs and marketers, like the levers are the same, right? It's how much the impact. I mean, at the moment with AI overviews, yes, we know clicks are down dramatically, no matter what the query or what the industry is, and so you transition, you pivot, and you build a brand that people know, like, trust, and recognize. And it's going to be the same, the same with AI mode. As it kicks in, it's going to try to devastate clicks even more so. But as we move to that kind of zero click world, then it's like anything. If you don't transition and you don't, as you just said a second ago, if you're still fixated on putting up your one blog post a week, then you're going to get left behind. That is, it's kind of just as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's going to be conversations we're going to be having with clients over the next 6 months, 18 months, whatever it is. Like, it's going to be a lot of those difficult conversations, but
absolutely,
we're going to be having them sooner rather than later, right? And this is something you and I were talking about before we started recording. I was like, how do we talk about this stuff? How do we communicate this stuff to people who aren't listening to the podcasts and paying attention to Google I/O or paying attention to how search is shifting in general? Search is such and broader marketing, the broader picture we've been talking about, it's so a part of our lives. We are so digital now, it is unavoidable. I know this is something I talked about when it came to the live podcast I did in Brighton with Sarah and Tasman from the SEO Mindset. We talk about personal branding, but I think it applies as well. Everything is a brand, whether you like it or not. You and I are public-facing people, Matt. You speak at conferences, you appear, you write articles, all this kind of stuff. I can Google your name and find information about you. You are a brand. It sounds really gross. It sounds really 1984. It sounds really Big Brother type shit. But it's all going to be that element. And I think whether you're aware of your brand or not, you need to get aware of your brand now before, as I said, the runaway train goes away and people start talking bad things about you. And that's what the LLMs are being trained on, is all the bad reviews and stuff.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's our jobs, as marketers, right, to be ahead of the curve, to educate our clients ahead of time. I mean, that's ultimately part of the consultancy, and why we're on board is to keep an eye on it. And fair enough, brand owners or marketeers, they're busy juggling many other things. So part of our job is that education process to say, well, look, this is what's coming. some things are in our control, many things aren't. But we need to get ahead by doing X, Y, Z, and if we don't, then we're going to be in trouble. And so it's like having those very kind of frank conversations.
Definitely. Right, let's wrap things up, Matt. Let's talk about some recommendations from you. I'm going to get some actionable tips, something you'd recommend to the viewers and listeners that they should be doing right now.
Yeah, so my kind of biggest actionable tip really is just to start getting in front of the spaces where the audience hangs out. So, there's many, but I would just pick one. So it might be like a niche newsletter or a niche podcast or a niche blog that you become a contributor to, or even an event. There's so many niche events out there, so it could be something that's offline as well. But just pick one. Start collaborating, start showing up, and then become an authority in that one space. Of course, you can spread out over time and stack it up, so to speak. But that's definitely where I'd say to start and become that kind of brand authority within that one space.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. I think that ties really nicely into what we've been talking about, right? Like, thinking outside of just the organic search and find a space. It could be a newsletter, could be a podcast, could be a Slack community, all kinds of stuff. I think there's so many opportunities out there that we're kind of stuck in our ways a little bit and could actually make the most of.
Yeah, 100%. I think just the most important thing is that you're 100% confident that your exact target market hangs out there, and to a high percentage as well, because sometimes it's difficult, especially at events, for an example, where you get your perfect audience. But as long as the vast majority of the audience that you want to target is within that channel, then it's a case of just showing up regularly and kind of getting your brand and message across.
100%. And speaking, I've seen a little sneak preview here. Speaking of customer research and audience research, recommend a tool for us, please, Matt.
Well, yeah, exactly. Off the back of that, when it comes to whatever space we're going to occupy, whether again it's a newsletter or a podcast or an event or a YouTube channel, the tool that we love the most at Bubblegum Search is SparkToro. So SparkToro is essentially exactly that. It's an audience research tool where you can do certain queries. So you can type in certain keywords, or you can input certain websites, and the tool will run and it will show you exactly the demographics of your audience, what podcasts they hang out on, what YouTube channels they follow, what social accounts that they follow. So you get all of that data, that critical data, and then from that you can start building your lists. Start contacting the people that run and own those podcasts or those channels, building up rapport and a reputation, and then ultimately, when the time's right, you can pitch to them and say, "Hey, look, I love what you do. I'm also in this industry, and I also would love to share lots of insights with you." And so, as I said, there's many to it, but I would start with that tool because it's just fantastic. And then, it's a starting point. Start with one space and own it and stack it up from there. But SparkToro is really excellent, and we use it consistently more and more at Bubblegum as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think you might be third or fourth guest this year to recommend SparkToro.
Oh, fine. That's interesting. Right.
Definitely a thing that I think a lot of people who are, like I said, getting ahead of the game and being aware of what's going on. Recommending SparkToro for sure.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And well, Rand Fishkin's a great advocate of exactly what we're talking about. Essentially, is practicing what he preaches. If anyone who follows Rand online, like whether it's on like LinkedIn or or his videos he does, or he just appears everywhere, and so he kind of does exactly what the tool provides. He finds the audience, and he appears in the spaces where they hang out. So it's it's excellent.
Yeah, 100%. And last but not least, recommend a book, a video, a podcast, a film, anything you've been enjoying recently.
Yeah, so I would say someone who comes to mind recently is a kind of shout out to Josh Peacock. I'm not sure if you've seen him or followed him. Yeah, he's
I've
been
never met him, but I've watched his stuff. Yeah, for sure.
same. And I wanted to kind of mention him here because again, it ties into what we've been speaking about. He's done a really excellent job of, in a very short period of time, setting up his YouTube channel, which he then films, the vlogs and the videos and the podcasts on, and then of course he distributes that to social. But in a very rapid time, he's done a great job with the content marketing, but also provides a lot of value specifically to the audience. And so for myself as an agency owner, he set up a series called like the Agency Growth Club. And it's just excellent because he gets guests on, and they share their experiences, both good and bad. And for myself as the viewer, it's just value first. But I know from seeing some of the posts that Josh has put up about how that's impacted his business personally, how that's helped with his own inquiries and stuff. So I think it was just testament to what we've been talking about, is kind of owning that space and providing value up front. And so, yeah, if anyone's interested in that, especially around kind of agency focused content, then yeah, Josh Peacock's a great guy to check out.
100%. I'll put links for all three of those things. Chuck them in the show notes there for you. And if people want to follow you, Matt, they want to follow what Bubblegum Search are up to, where are the best places to find you across the multitude of search formats?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like LinkedIn is predominantly the place I hang out the most. I do have like a Twitter account, but I rarely post on it, to be honest. So LinkedIn, it's just / Matt Cayless. So nice and easy. And then I've got a newsletter I put out, bi-weekly newsletter as well. So you can easily find that and subscribe just via our website at bubblegumsearch.com. Yeah, we've got a YouTube channel as well, which again, just Bubblegum Search. So those are the main places I'd say. Yeah, so LinkedIn, I'm very, very chatty on LinkedIn, so everyone's welcome to connect. And just, that's probably the main place.
Brilliant. Lovely. I will put links for all of those things in the show notes as well, folks. So please do click the video description down below. Check all the show notes out on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. I'll have links for everything down below. Thank you so much for joining me, Matt. It's been a real fun pleasure. I know even before we started recording, we chatted for 40 minutes beforehand. So it's been really, really fun to have a chat.
It's been awesome.
Catch up.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
And that wraps up this week's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Matt as much as I did, and you've basically been rethinking, maybe reframing some ideas about brand authority and how you're going to build it, and maybe your approach to digital PR as well. I've got some other brand focused and digital PR focused episodes coming up. I know I'll be talking a lot about digital PR with Abby Bennett, who, funnily enough, I moderated at Brighton SEO in April, and who will be coming on the show later on in the year to talk exactly about digital PR and building your brand with digital PR. A really nice companion piece to this episode. Next week, I have Ian Ferguson, again, somebody who I met in Brighton and who is a brilliant guy, talking all about UX and SEO and how those two things should kind of be working together. What do you do when they clash? How do you approach communication between teams? All that kind of stuff. Ian and I get into a great conversation about UX and SEO next week. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, have a lovely week. And thank you so much for listening or watching wherever you're listening or watching. See you later.